If you were in that cast, please sign this because I need it signed. I have two of these. So there's been a lot going on recently. There's been a lot going on lately about anti-Asian sentiment out there. And there's a lot of violence against Asians happening out there on the streets. So this week I wanted to do a story about a show that I saw that changed my perspective about who I am, and really the first time that I ever really felt seen on stage. This one's about Here Lies Love. So in honor of today's video, I'm wearing my "It's an honor just to be Asian" said by the wonderful and talented Sandra Oh. This was a shirt that was put out by East West Players in Los Angeles. Support them, but honestly, it is just an honor to be Asian. There's a lot happening recently, and it really made me want to reflect on shows that really resonated with me as an Asian person. So, you know, when you're in theater and you're involved in theater, you're kind of told initially that the only shows that you can be in because you look like this is King and I, Flower Drum Song, what's the other one? And Miss Saigon. They came out in the 80s. So you have a show that's come out, you know, in the 50s and the 60s and then the 80s when they finally wrote a big one for us, Miss Saigon. But you know, there's more to it than that. There should be more to it than that. Not something that I want to get into right now because that's a very long conversation to have, but hopefully eventually. But this is a story about how I became completely obsessed with this show called Here Lies Love. The first time I heard about it was actually from my friends Stacy and Lisa, who had gone to see it when they were in New York. It's a story about Imelda Marcos, not about her shoes. It's a story of mostly the Marcoses and their sort of rise to power. How the Philippines went from a democracy to a dictatorship. So that's something that happened in our history. It tells the story of the rise of the Marcoses alongside a politician by the name of Ninoy Aquino, a very famous politician, and sort of their kind of coexistence with each other and the politics that was happening in the Philippines at the time during the 50s all the way up to the 80s when they were deposed from the country. So, sounds fun. How do you describe this show? I think it was described as kind of a disco, dancing, energetic kind of experience. And that's exactly what the show is. It's an experience. 2013 was its initial run. It returned for a following run, an open run at the public in 2014. That's when I got to see it because I had missed it the first time. So I heard very, very little about this show, surprisingly. My friends had told me about it, and I was looking for shows to see in New York. So a show about Imelda Marcos and Filipinos, like, sign me up, I'm there. So, and up until that point, 2014, I was already in my mid-20s, late 20s, how old was I? I was in my late 20s, I was 29, and I hadn't really seen a lot of theater shows that are not only telling the story and history, the background, the ethnic background, the racial background that I'm from, but that tells it as a musical and tells it in a new and interesting and interactive way. I almost didn't get into this show. Please don't kill me for telling the story, but my friend Lisa, who had the thing about this show was that it had sold out so fast, and so people were trying to get tickets to see it just in case it sold out forever. So I was also trying to get my ticket, and my friend Lisa had been a public supporter, so she was able to get tickets ahead of time. The problem with that is that she forgot that she got my ticket. So I get to the public, I'm already at the venue, And I had a seat up in the box, but I decided I didn't want the seat anymore. I thought I'd just ask box office if they had something downstairs, because I kind of wanted the full interactive experience. From what I heard from my friends, that really was the way to see this show. And I went to a matinee, so it's not like it was an evening show. I wasn't tired or anything from my, my journey in New York or anything. I went to the venue early to go see if there were any tickets available for the downstairs area, and I found out that I didn't get a ticket. I found out that my ticket had been canceled. My friend just completely forgot that she had gotten me a ticket, so she accidentally canceled it. So I'm glad I went early to the venue to kind of see about that situation. Thankfully, rush tickets were available. They were available in cash, and I actually just happened to have like my last $40 in cash on me. They were $35 at the time, so I paid it. But by that time, I was already kind of, I was going to be late if I went to check. I already checked in my stuff before I went to the box office, and I only had my wallet in hand. So I didn't want to run back to coat check to deliver my wallet. So I kept my wallet with me when I walked into the venue, which was a big mistake because I had to lug that thing around with me the entire show. It is really interactive. It's one of those shows where you shouldn't be carrying anything because your hands need to be free to move, your legs need to be free to move, you need to be free to move. So I regret bringing in my wallet, but I had to so I could pay for the ticket. But I did end up downstairs because of rush tickets. That's what they had available. And I walked into that place and it was something else. It was like, there was a disco ball hanging from the ceiling and all these people just kind of milling about. We're all, first timers, so we're all kind of like looking around, trying to figure out what's happening. And on the walls of the venue, which were, the venue itself was incredibly small. It was just like this kind of cube boxes in the middle, and then surrounding it were the few seats that they had upstairs. But downstairs, there were these projections of the Filipino Cultural Arts Center. If you've never seen the Filipino Cultural Arts, I'm going to put up a picture, but I'll describe it. It looks like this big cement box. It basically looks like a coffin. It's the thing that Imelda Marcos spent money on in the Philippines. So instead of, I don't know, throwing that money back into the economy and helping Filipino people, helping with unemployment, helping with poverty, she decided to go and do this. So her idea was to bring culture and arts to the Philippines, which Filipinos have a big sense of culture and art in the Philippines, but I guess she wanted it to be more modernized and bring ballet and bring theater and I don't know. Anyway, it looks the way it looks. So there were these projections of the building on the walls, and I was already kind of feeling it. I was already kind of damaged a little bit. I'm like, I knew what it was immediately. The last time I went to the Philippines was 2010, but I was 25, but like I really wanted to soak in all the culture. I went on a tour of the Intramuros, which is an old fort area in the Philippines. I did pass the cultural center and I wanted to know what that was. So I asked a lot of questions, and that's when I really took a deep dive. I'd love to go back and learn more, but I recognized it instantly when I saw it on the walls of the theater. And it's the first time that I really recognized something that was kind of from my culture. I went into the show a little wrecked because the second opening song from that is Here Lies Love. Even now I'm getting, even now I get a little misty because it's just so familiar to people who grow up Filipino, and we always, as immigrants, I wasn't born in this country, I was born in the Philippines. I think we always ride this wave of like being Filipino and recognizing our culture, and then being American and recognizing this culture. So having these two kind of meld together as a theater show, one of my favorite mediums it's just an overwhelming feeling. But it was the first that really resonated with me and really made an impact on how I view theater, I guess, in general, and how, as Filipinos, I want to see more of that representation in theater. Especially, I remember the third song that happened in the show is called Child of the Philippines, and Conrad from How to Get Away with Murder, and now The Resident, he comes out as Ninoy Aquino in this very classic white suit and glasses, and he starts singing, you know, I am a child of the Philippines, and at that point, I'm already, like, sobbing my face off. Like, I saw Imelda Marcos sitting up there, Ruth Ann Miles playing Imelda Marcos, sitting up there in her little Filipino outfit, and even, it's so amazing to me, David Byrne, the composer, seems to get this, like, this sound that's so distinctly Filipino, and I don't know how he did that. I really should do more research, because it sounds like Filipino cultural songs and also Filipino pop songs, which is strange. And so Child of the Philippines starts playing. I'm a hot mess. I'm already sobbing my face off at feeling represented and feeling seen on stage with all these beautiful different Asian women and men. And Conrad, you know, kind of sidesteps me because I think I'm blocking his stares. And so he, like, moves me aside a little, and he said thanks. And then he gets up on stage and he starts singing this song, and I just about lose my mind at hearing about being a child from the Philippines. Like, that's me. I'm a child from the Philippines. And then to further my losing my mind status, I knew it was a Filipino show, so I went in wearing one of my shirts that has kind of like the Filipino sun on it that's only gonna be recognizable to other Filipinos. It was a charity shirt by T Fury, and so I wore that to the show because I just wanted to feel part. So Conrad gets up on there and he starts singing the song, and there's a part in the song where he reaches his hand out to somebody in the audience standing around this cube thing, and that somebody was me. I nearly died. Like, to feel so part of this show, even though I'm, like, not, as just feeling represented by it, and then to kind of have that interaction just completely wrecked me and damaged me. And I remember thinking when I first heard him sing, I was like, oh, this is somebody that I'm gonna be following forever. Like, forever. I mean, you've heard him on How to Get Away with Murder, haven't you? Because you should check out his single. I'll link it up here. But yeah, he was just, it was just overwhelming for me to experience something like that mid-show. Not even mid-show, the beginning of the show. I was already crying, so I just, like, lost my crap at that point. I was trying to maintain my crap, and then I lost it. So, thanks, Conrad. The show itself is incredible. Like, not only are you interacting, they do a very carefully, I don't want to call it a dance, but it's kind of like a dance. It's this balanced act of moving the stage and the set pieces so that you have to go along with the set. It's as if you're moving through the motions with them, through the decades with them. There are parts in the show where they're encouraging you to dance. They show you a dance. They encourage you to dance with the other dancers that are dancing on the stage. And it's not only does it make you pay attention to the scenery that you're seeing and to the content of the play, but it just makes you it makes you feel part of it. It makes you want to be a part of it. And I hope the intent of that is also to learn more about what's happening, right? So it starts off with the election of Marcos and these campaigns, and it goes all the way up to their leaving the Philippines to go to Hawaii when they were cast out of the palace, left all the shoes behind. It's hard to describe what it feels like when you see people who look like you on any kind of major platform, in this case an actual platform, but also a major platform. Like, you had the 3 stars of the show were Conrad Ricamora, Ruthie Ann Miles, and Jose Lana. 2 of those people are Filipino, and Ruthie is Korean. And the rest of the cast is incredible, and I know for a fact that a lot of them are Filipino, and that I've been lucky to interact with over the years, and they've been nothing but amazing when I run up to them and make them sign this. That's my goal here. I've been trying to get everybody to sign this. I'm missing Jose, even though he was on King and I tour, and I saw that like 3 times. I chickened out every time. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was going to talk to Ferdinand Marcos, but that's just what happened. So, goals. If you were in that cast, please sign this, because I need it signed. I have 2 of these, so. It's hard to describe what it feels like to see your background represented on stage, to see your culture represented on stage. There's a part in the show where Imelda, when Marcos is having his affair, his very famous affair, she yells at him in Tagalog, and she says, you know, putang ina mo, and then she sings it, and she says it. So, like, the 6 Filipinos that were in the public theater at the time, all of us collectively were like, woo! We, like, cheered. And I think it was kind of a trigger, because if you hear, I remember the first time that I heard Tagalog spoken on a major network, where I had paid attention, was CNN, and the documentary by Jose Antonio called Undocumented, about his journey of being an undocumented person in the United States. And he had spoken to his mother on the phone or over Skype, and they spoke Tagalog to each other, and I was sobbing my face off. You just don't hear, it feels very weird to hear the language that you grew up hearing being spoken in a kind of way that made it sound like, oh, we hear this all the time. Like, I hear Tagalog all the time. Like, no, I only hear Tagalog spoken in my house with my mom. And then, you know, I answer back in very broken Tagalog. But, I mean, I understand fluently. I wish I spoke it better. I know I don't. That's a whole another Filipino topic to touch on. But if you hear your language being spoken in kind of this public space, you kind of... And then nobody else except the people who also have the same background as you, they also react the same way that you did. You have that in common immediately, instantly. You have that in common. And it feels so good to be part of that. You feel like you're part of something. As an immigrant, you look for those things to be part of. You know, you relate to the Filipino parts of you. You relate to the American parts of you. But especially in a musical theater show where I'm often not represented at all by people that I see on the stage, it feels so important to have that kind of connection to a show. And Here Lies Love was definitely the show that connected me to my culture and to my roots, and it made me become more aware of what was happening on stages, of not seeing myself and not hearing something that I could relate to directly. This is something that I could relate to directly. Like, not only did I understand the references, I understand the history, and then the parts that I don't, I want to learn more. And I hope that that's what the audience comes away thinking, that they want to learn more, they want to hear more, that they want to see more of the faces that are on the stage. That was my hope. And then it was also fun, just kind of like hearing that language being spoken and then looking around and everybody else heard it too, and then we're all cheering at the same time. That's a nutso feeling. That's crazy. That does not happen, like, at all in any other theater show that I went to. You know, I'm not giving up on this show. I want it to go to Broadway. I saw it also, they did a revival of it in Seattle in 2017. Conrad was back for that show playing Ninoy again. JG Macapugai was playing Imelda Marcos. Mark Bautista, I think. Mark Bautista. Actually, all three leads at that time were Filipino. Yay! And I brought my mom this time because I wanted her to experience this show. So she saw it twice with me. I saw it more than twice, but so she got to see it with me in Seattle, which I was super excited. And even then, even though I had already seen the show in New York, it had been 3 years at that point, I still lose it every time. Every time I think about it in general and really diving into what this show means and who the show is about and who the show represents. And I really think that it's such an emotional thing. But my hope is, especially for this show, is that it does continue on, that other people get the opportunity to see it. You know, not every show has to come to Broadway, but I feel like shows like this should go to Broadway, because Broadway is the place that you get recognition for shows like this, that all the major outlets will come and support this. I just wanted to get even more recognition on Broadway. Like, why isn't it on Broadway? And I understand the reasons for that, not only for the show itself and how difficult it is for things to get to Broadway, but logistically, like, how do you do a show like this where it's so interactive and you have to move with the pieces on the ground, and they have safety officers who direct that, but you know, what if something happens to an audience member that they get stuck underneath this cube thing, which I don't think is possible. It moves so, and I don't know, but it moves so slowly that you're able to kind of go with it. There are seats available that they did, and especially in Seattle at the Repertory Theater there, they had the seats that were toward the back, and if you didn't want to dance, you didn't want to be on the dance floor, you didn't have to be. They had seats available on the sides, and then they had seats available in the back to kind of view it as more of a traditional show. I think that that's probably the best thing for it, is to have kind of the best of both worlds. If you don't want to do this part, at least you can do this part. And probably the difficult part of that is finding a venue that can kind of accommodate these kind of things for it. But I'm still incredibly hopeful. I'm never going to give up on this show. I'm always going to talk about this show. It's the, you know, I hear something that happens about it, I'm going to go and I'm going to support it. For example, Seattle Rep is having a fundraising event this Saturday, March 13th, and which is tomorrow. Late notice, but it's tomorrow, featuring some of the cast of the show when it was in Seattle. So I'm gonna link that somewhere down below, and hopefully you can go check that out before and join that fundraiser for Seattle. It's a show that's been with me in my heart, and it just with me almost every single day. Every time I think about the theater, I think about shows like this and feeling represented on stage. And not only is it important for an audience member, I think it's important for the actors who are there representing us on the stage, giving actors more of an opportunity, not only to play people that look like them, but also just to be represented to an audience as different people. I mean, you know, there's a lot of talk about colorblind casting, but to be truly colorblind casting, it's something like a Cinderella, where you have Brandy and you have Victor Garber and Whoopi Goldberg, and you come out with Paulo Montalban. Like, that is true colorblind casting. You don't even recognize or have to explain anything at all. It just is. And I think until we get to that point, I don't think that's true representation. And if this show comes to your town, or people put on a show near you, I highly recommend you go see it to support it, that it comes to Broadway. Manifest it into the universe that this show goes to Broadway. Please go to Broadway. If you like this video, please like and subscribe down below and hit that notification bell to know when I put up a new video. I even said last week that I was going to do this every Friday, but it was my birthday last week and I didn't feel like doing anything, so sorry about it. Thanks for watching. Come back next week when I'll have another one of these. More things that I'm just obsessed about week after week after week after week.